Okay, so we're going to be looking at the practice test and going through that. So,
Mrs. Reed,
yes,
the practice test, was it homework? Like, did we have to do it and turn it in?
I would like to see your attempt on it.
Okay.
Just because then that gives me more idea. And I decided that the regular test tomorrow, it's just going to be a regular test. I'll send it to your parents this afternoon for tomorrow. So, um, so on number 1, you're given a graph that looks something like that. And it asks, is it a linear function, and explain. So when it wants you to explain this is not a linear function. And what makes it not linear is that there is no constant rate of change. If I look at a rate of change between those 2 points, it's relatively flat compared to a rate of change between these 2 points. So your explanation would be that there's not a constant rate of change. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, hearing nothing. I'm assuming that you're awake and alive and
We are.
and no one has any questions on that. So they give you this function in number 2. It says a jogger pays $15 a month for a membership into a jogging club. They give you the equation, graph the function, what's the domain and range. So on this one, they want to see that the scale of your graph, and they want to see that the domain is x values greater than or equal to 0, because we're not going to talk about a negative number of months. And the range are the y values that are greater than or equal to 0. You're not going to pay, someone's not going to pay you to not go to their gym. So they want to see that you recognize that domain and ranges of certain activities can only be positive. Number 3. They give you the equation. If we're looking for, I'm sorry, that should be a minus. 6x minus 2y equals 12. Find the x and y intercepts. We put 0 in for y when we want to find the x-intercept and solve it for x. We put 0 in for x when we want to find the y-intercept and solve it for y. So x-intercept is 2, y-intercept is negative 6. Number 4, they give you a table there. During which time interval did the number of people increase at the greatest rate? And what was the rate of change for that interval? If I'm looking at that chart, do I have to calculate the rate of change for all of them? You might have to, because they might be close. So this rate of change for this one is going to be 30 over 2 or 15 over 1.
Miss Reed?
Yes.
What were the x-intercept and y-intercept on 3?
X-intercept equals 2.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. So when I calculate the rate of change here, it's going to be negative 10 because it's going down by 10. This one, it's going up by 10, but our x's are changing by 3. And the next one, is going up by 25. So this would be the largest interval from 7 to 8 would be the largest interval, and the rate of change would be 25. So basically, I'm just calculating the slope between each of the coordinate or each of the points. Number 5, it's a vertical line. Thinking about how you climb that line, you have to have some assistance to climb that line, like spikes or whatever, into the side of the mountain. So the slope of a vertical line is undefined. If you can't think of it that way, pick some points that are on that line. 3, 0, 3, 2. Find your slope. Can't have division by 0, so it's undefined. What's the slope of a horizontal line going to be?
0.
Okay, thank you. Number 6, find the slope of the line that contains 2, -3, and 7, 11. 11 minus -3 over 7 minus 2. So that's going to be 14 over 5. And that doesn't reduce down, so you just leave it as 14 over 5. Number 7. Tell whether or not this is a direct variation and why. Eva's favorite word.
No.
I know. So what does a direct variation have to do?
Doesn't it have to have like a constant rate of change?
Okay, it has to have a constant rate of change. That's one thing. What else?
Go through.
Same slope, right?
Does it have to go through 0?
It has to go through the origin, 0, 0. So right away, you don't even have to do any calculations on this one if you recognize that 0, 3 is where it's going to be hitting the y-axis at 3 instead of having a y-intercept of 0. So it's not a direct variation because it has a y-intercept of 3. So that would be the explanation for why. So whenever you're talking direct variation, you want to talk constant rate of change and a y-intercept of 0. Those are the two things. Number 8, write a standard form that describes the line with a slope of -2 and contains the point 3, 2. So we put it in slope or point slope form first. Y minus 2 equals -2 times x minus 3. So whatever you're given, that's the equation that you use to start out with. Then you move it to the form that they want it in standard form. So we're going to distribute out this -2. We're going to move the -2 over here. So it's going to become +2. And we're going to take that x over to this side. So it's going to become +2x plus y equals 8. No fractions. X and y are on one side of the equation. Constant terms on the other side. Standard form. Questions on that?
Can you explain how you do that again?
There for a minute so I can copy that.
Yep. Ava, what do you want me to explain? Walk through it again?
Yeah.
Okay. So they gave you slope and point. So that means I'm going to use the point slope form. So I put my y value in there, y minus 2, my slope of -2, x minus 3, my x coordinate. I distribute out the -2, it becomes -2x plus 6 equals y minus 2. I add the 2 to both sides to get the constant terms together. So the 6 plus the 2 give me my 8. I'm going to add 2x to both sides to get the x over there with the y. So that becomes +2x plus y equals 8. We check to see no fractions. X and y on one side, constant term on the other. That gives us our standard form.
So you start out with a point slope thing or whatever?
Yeah, you start out with whatever they give you. If they give you a slope and intercept or a slope and a point, you start out with using that form and then you go to convert it after that.
How do you know, sometimes I feel like when you're distributing -2, like sometimes like we're treating it as a -3 right here,
Uh-huh.
right? But like I feel like sometimes we just do just the 3. Is it always going to be like that if it's -3?
Always keep the negative sign with the number.
Okay.
So
And then
yeah.
and then when we're using the y minus 2 on the other side,
Yep.
and we're bringing it over, so we're doing +2. We're not bringing the -2 to the other side.
It's the same process. We bring the -2 to the
Okay.
other side, but because we're crossing the equal sign, it changes signs.
All right.
The same thing with the -2x. We're bringing that over. We cross the equal sign, so it becomes a +2x.
So with standard form, you have to get the x and the y on the same side of the equals?
Yes.
Okay. And then for slope-intercept form, you need y equals and then your x on the other side?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Any other
And
questions?
if it's like a -8 and we gotta move it to the other side of the equals for something, would it become? It always just switches.
Yes.
So if it's a -8, it becomes going to the other side. If it's a +2, it becomes a -2.
Yeah.
Always.
Whenever you cross the equal sign, it changes signs.
Okay. All right.
Okay, any other questions on that one? Everyone got it written down? All right, I'm going to a new page. Graph the line with a slope of -2/5 and a y-intercept of 2. So that's what we're given. y-intercept of 2, slope of negative 2/5, so I'm going down 2 units and over 5. And there's my line. It does go down as I'm going to the right. That tells me I got my sign right on my slope. Questions on that? What kind of line is that on 10? First one. When it only has a y equals, it's a horizontal line. This one, y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2, has a slope of negative 1/2, the y-intercept of 2. The next equation has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of negative 1. And then the fourth line has a slope of negative 2 and a y-intercept of 2. And the question on number 10 is identify which lines are parallel or perpendicular and parallel. So when I'm looking at perpendicular or parallel, I'm looking at the slopes. That's really all I care about is the slopes. And if I look at a slope of negative 1/2, a slope of 2, and a slope of negative 2. This one has a slope of 0, so that's out of there because there's nothing that relates to these other ones. If I had a vertical line, then the horizontal and the vertical would be perpendicular. So I'm looking for combinations of slopes that are either the same, and none of those are the same, so there's no parallel lines. Because they're none the same. And our perpendicular lines would have to be the ones that when you multiply them together, you get a negative 1. Or another way to look at it is, are there slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other? So this is positive, the other two are negative, so that's one that's opposite of those two. The reciprocal of 2 would be 1/2. So this line and this line are perpendicular. So line number 2 and 3 are perpendicular. Does that make sense?
Why would the not be the negative one?
This one here?
Yeah. Since wouldn't the reciprocal that be negative 1/2?
The reciprocal would be negative 1/2, but in order to be perpendicular, it's the opposite reciprocal. So then I would have to look for a positive 1/2.
Okay.
Good question.
So how would you know if it was parallel again? What's the formula for it?
Parallel, you would have slopes that are the same.
The exact same.
The exact same, yep.
Okay.
Okay, number 11. So we want to write the equation in point slope form. They give us a slope of 7, and they give us a point. They want it in point slope form. They give us a point and a slope, so we use point slope. So y minus our y coordinate, y minus 4, equals our slope times x minus our x coordinate. So x minus a minus 2 would be plus 2. They want it in point slope form. We have it in point slope form. So we're done.
When they want it in standard form, you need to put it in point slope form and then put it in standard form. Is that there?
If they give you a point and a slope to start with, yeah, you would start with point slope form and then convert it from there.
So there's no way just to make it standard form just by.
No.
Okay.
Whenever you go to standard form, it's always going to be converted from either the point slope or the slope intercept form. Number 12. Write an equation in slope intercept form for the line that passes through 0, 6 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 3/2 x plus 4. So whenever we're creating an equation of a line, we need a point and a slope. We're going to get our slope because we want it perpendicular. We're going to take the reciprocal of the slope that we see in the line and the opposite. So our slope that we're going to use is negative 2/3. When we look at this point, anytime x is 0, our y value is our y-intercept. That is our b. So we know b, we know m. We put it in our slope-intercept form, and we get that. If you don't recognize this as the y-intercept, you would use the slope and a point. So you would go and use the point slope form. So y minus 6 equals negative 2/3 times x minus 0. And then you would have to put it into slope-intercept form.
Wait. Why'd you flip it?
Why am I doing this?
No, why'd you flip it?
Why did I flip?
To 3/2.
Because they wanted the perpendicular, the line to be perpendicular.
Oh.
So I had to find the opposite reciprocal of 3/2. If they wanted it parallel, I would just go ahead and use the 3/2.
Miss Reed.
Yes.
Hi, sorry, I'm from 7th grade. Just a lot of people in 7th grade are confused that what lesson we're supposed to be doing. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting your class.
Well, if you go and look on what's newly posted right now, that is what is due. I switched everything around this morning, and I took off the other assignment.
Okay.
Okay? So if you weren't at the Google Meet, you would realize that you're doing the work for Monday instead of for today. If you were at the Google Meet, you would realize that I switched things around. Okay? All right, algebra class.
Were none of them at the Google Meet?
What?
I said, were none of them at the Google Meet?
No, they were at the Google Meet.
Oh.
I messed up this morning and went on to a different section that I was going to do tomorrow. I did that today, and it doesn't really matter which order we do it in, but yeah, I messed up. So questions on that? So you can get to the slope-intercept form even if you don't recognize that as the y-intercept using the point slope and get the same equation.
Wait, so if they want a parallel, like, equation or whatever, you wouldn't have to switch it, right?
Correct.
Like, you wouldn't have to flip it?
Yeah, you would just leave it as 3/2.
So only time you flip it's when you want perpendicular?
Correct.
Okay.
And then the last one, number 13. I'm going to go to my graphing calculator and look at these two equations. Actually, I'm just going to go to Desmos because it's easier to get there. All right, so y equals 2x and y equals -1/2. -1/2 x plus 5. There we go. So there's my two graphs. How are we going to talk about them? The two things you want to talk about are y-intercepts and slopes. So we can see that the slopes of those lines are perpendicular. They're opposite reciprocals. So the lines are perpendicular. One has a y-intercept of 0. The other one has a y-intercept of 5. They both go through the point 2, 4. So that's what you would be looking at for your discussion of how those are describe the transformation. So the transformation from f of x to g of x is a perpendicular line through the point 2, 4. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think a few people have some questions on the test anyways.
Okay.
So we don't have to do the transformation and rotation thing?
What do you mean?
For whatever, or not the transformation. If we're describing the transformation, we don't have to do like reciprocate vocabulary. We don't have to reciprocation.
You don't have to use the word rotation. You can say that the two lines are perpendicular to each other. You would want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you wouldn't say that it's a rotation of -90 degrees about the point 2, 4, because that's what it would be, but no. I'm looking for more that you're talking about the slopes and the y-intercepts. If you were to say it's a line that is perpendicular to f of x but has a y-intercept of 5, that would be fine also.
Hi, Miss Reed. I'm from 7th grade. We in Google Classroom. I'm sorry, but you posted 4-6 and said we should do 4-6, but in the meet you taught us 4-7.
Did I really? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, I really messed up then. Oh, yeah. I will post 4-7's assignment. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So we're just gonna do 4-7 today.
Yes.
Miss Reed.
Yes.
So we, yeah, I emailed